Learn how to stop foreclosure in wholesaling real estate. Guys, this is Rick Ginn with Flip with Rick. And in this video, we are going to dive in on how to deal with foreclosure and how to potentially stop a foreclosure. But before I get started, do me a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and continue to receive free content just like this from myself and Zach. So guys, foreclosure. If you haven't dealt with it in wholesaling, you need to become familiar with it. It's actually a very simple process, and I want to break it down for you. And a lot of people talk really high about it, and they use like complicated jargon of attorney terms and like legal terms. Title companies talk all over you. Let's just break it down and make this super simple. I've been around foreclosure for 18 years, and it never changes. The technology changes a little bit, but the process is the exact same, really, since the day the process was invented. So what is a foreclosure? Let's start with that. A foreclosure is nothing more than the legal action of a lender enforcing to collect debts owed on a note, and they secure the real estate property. So in layman's terms, what that means is when people stop making a payment to their bank or their lender, they have the right to initiate a legal process to take the property back to satisfy this debt. This is known as foreclosure. It's simple as that. And if it's a $50 million property or a $50,000 property, it's exactly all the same. Having a firm grasp of what foreclosure is a fundamental principle you want to understand in wholesaling. Now, it's safe to say we deal with lots of problems in wholesaling. Foreclosure is right in the epicenter of what we do. We get a lot of people that are distressed, loss of job, loss of a loved one, probate, and something like this. So it's not when you'll come across a foreclosure, it's when you'll come across a foreclosure. So let's walk through the basic mechanics of a foreclosure from day one till the very last day that the bank sells it. And what I'm going to do is identify opportunities for you to have the ability to potentially stop a foreclosure and help a seller out. That's all you want to do. Now, I don't want you guys to be a lawyer. Actually, the complete opposite. If you have any questions, you consult a lawyer / title company. You are not in this business to be a legal expert. So don't pretend to be, and don't try to practice law in your own hands. So that's enough with the disclosure. I just had to get it out of there. So number one is payments are due typically once a month. So it could be the first of the month, the middle of the month, the end of the month, doesn't matter. So every 30 days. So what happens is when a client owes on a property, whatever the amount is, it's irrelevant, and they miss a payment, they get a little notice from their bank. They're going to get a late fee, and their bank's going to send them a nice little reminder saying, hey, listen, you're running behind your mortgage. You need to get this payment in. Okay, that's month one. Nothing happens. Don't worry about it. Okay. Month two is they get an additional late payment. And at that point, they'll probably get an urgent letter that they're running behind on their mortgage and it needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. So this is around day 45 to 60. Now they've missed 2 payments, and you can guess what's happened. The third payment comes up. By the time that third payment comes up, they are not only getting nasty letters, they're getting all sorts of warnings. They don't really do emails, but they're definitely getting phone calls. So all lenders have the borrower's information. They have their social security number. They have everything. Let's face it, they are master debt collectors, and they will drive them nuts. They're going to call them at home. They're going to call them at work. They're going to have their cell phone. It starts to get endless. And this is where most sellers start to panic and freak out. So this is the kind of opportunity. Once 90 days have gone by, the lender has the right to start the foreclosure process. So I want you to understand everything up from day one to that 90th day is a precursor to a foreclosure. It has nothing to do with foreclosure. It's just typically the borrower has to get behind at least 3 months, guys, 3 months. So when someone tells you, I'm in foreclosure and I didn't miss a payment, you're not getting the whole story, okay? Buyers do lie sometimes. It's just the truth. Your job is to help them out. So help walk them through. Find out when they made their last payment. So after the 90th day, the lender has the right to go ahead and start a foreclosure action. So a key step happens here, guys. This is it. So most sellers are a little bit freaked out on late notices when they start getting phone calls. A lot of them will start, hiding information from their significant other, whatever it is, or they both know about it. And then on the 90th day, or maybe the 120th, there's no magic number. The lender makes the decision. They start the foreclosure process. So your question is, how does it actually start? It's simple. It's called a lis pendens. It's LISPENDENS, lis pendens. This is just a formal announcement that the lender is moving forward with the foreclosure, and they're going to announce it on public record. How do they do this? It's called a lawsuit. So a lis pendens is nothing more than an announcement of a lawsuit to a piece of real property they're seeking to get repaid on. And if the seller does not repay the amount owed on it, the bank will move forward in the foreclosure process. So we've gone through that first critical 90 days. I love to catch a seller within that 90 days because there is a ton of options you can help them out with, okay? Understanding once the lender gets to a lis pendens, in my opinion, they're pretty ticked off. And so what they do is they hire a lawyer. So those of you that have worked with lawyers, or maybe you're a lawyer yourself, understand they don't do anything for free. There's a cost, and there's usually a big cost associated with it. So what they do is they file this formal lawsuit, and it's called the lis pendens, and it goes on public record. So when you see lis pendens, it means the process has started. This is important for you, okay? It means you're in the very, very beginning. So once a lis pendens is served, the seller, or also known as AKA the defendant, has 20 days to answer it. Now, the homeowner is not required to hire an attorney. A lot of people don't understand this. They can simply respond. The homeowner has the ability to buy more time than any other lawyer, you or me, could buy them. But if they don't respond to the lis pendens, their options slowly erode as time goes by, okay? Judges like people to answer lawsuits. When somebody answers a lawsuit, you have a shot. If you hide under a rock and don't answer anything, which most sellers do in foreclosure, the options get limited. So if you can catch a seller in that first 90 days, you can usually try to work a deal out with them, and you can either make up payments or you can do a really creative solution because there's no lawyer involved. But once a lis pendens is announced, they have 20 days to respond. I don't even care how a seller responds. They can just write a paragraph saying, listen, I'm going through a tough time. I plan on making up the payments. I'm trying to work this out with my lender. Most courts at that point will set aside a hearing and have the lender, which is the plaintiff and the defendant, have a meeting. And usually they try to have them come to what they call mediation, some sort of an agreement. And as long as somebody's responding, I've seen these things get dragged out 6 months, 9 months to like a year. Remember, no lawyer is involved at this point, and it's simple, a just simple response. Now, I like to give the truth, but if they're having a hard time or they're like, listen, I'm going to find a buyer to buy my house. I just need another 90 days. I need another, maybe it's past 90 days, but any of you guys familiar with law is everything in the court system seems to take 90 days. So it's like, it's not uncommon to get a 90-day extension. Now, guys, I'm not giving you legal advice, and I'm not having you act as a lawyer. I'm giving you opportunities to address points in the foreclosure so you can either stop it or downright slow it down to a crawl, okay? So now we're at the lis pendens. You have 20 days respond. So now say we're at 120 days. Now, if the seller has not responded at this point, the plaintiff's attorney for the lender is going to file for some sort of motion. Now, I'm not going to get into technicalities of this part because it's different for some states. What I'd like you to do at the end of this video is find out if you're in a judicial or non-judicial state. The reason is it's important. So a non-judicial state versus a judicial state has different speeds at which they do a foreclosure. Judicial, non-judicial, just you want to know because one goes faster than the other depending on what state. So I don't want to give bad information. I'm not a lawyer. So now we're at the 120 days. The seller didn't say, they didn't respond. And so say we're 7 months into this now, okay? And your seller says, hey, listen, my house is in foreclosure, but like it just started. Now you have the ability to go up and pull up. So what you want to do is go in and do a search under your official records for your county and just get their last name and their first initial, and you should be able to pull up the case, and it's all public record. So now you can tell if your seller is telling you the truth, and you can identify an opportunity to try to stop or halt the foreclosure correctly and legally. The easiest way is have them involved at the lis pendens process, because it doesn't cost any money and the court always wants to hear from the homeowner. Now, as time goes by, the plaintiff will keep filing motions to keep ratcheting it up. So not depositions, but it just, they can provide documents. So what they want to do is they have to produce the original mortgage. They have to show that they signed for it. Everything's legal and compliant. That takes usually anywhere from 3 to 6 months. You go through that process. But what happens is you start to get to the end of the process. The plaintiff's goal is to get a final judgment. What the final judgment says is, this case is over. We side with the plaintiff. The defendant never responded. So by absence of saying anything, they're just guilty. And this happens all the time. Here's the real challenging part. Now, at the lis pendens, I find the most opportunity to help sellers out, and that's where you can get involved and sit down with an attorney, get some help, get some advice, and to ask how you can help, just to have your homeowners just respond to it. Say, hey, listen, I'm working with a buyer. It's going to take me about 90 days. And if I could just have some more time, or I might be able to catch up on the payments. The courts are usually pretty lenient about that. So if we catch them at the lis pendens before, I love it because I have tons of opportunity. I can stop the foreclosure. I can work with it. If I get past 6 months, 9 times out of 10, you have to involve an attorney because a motion has to be filed. It has to be heard, and it's going to cost money. How much? Sky's the limit. I mean, the later you wait, the more it costs, because then you have to rush to file a motion. So most attorneys won't do anything under $1,000, plus there's court costs going on to it. So now you're talking about real money. The problem comes in when your motivated seller reaches out to you, say they're 9 months into the foreclosure process and you verified it. If there is a final judgment, which means basically they lost the case, the next step is the plaintiff will file for a motion to put the house up for some sort of auction. So this is known as the foreclosure auction. So all those houses you see at the courthouse that get sold on auction, they go from final judgment this process. Now, that's how it works where I'm at. It's going to be a little bit different for every other state. Once there's a final judgment, most courts don't want to hear from you. The judge doesn't want to hear from you. Sorry, Charlie, too little, too late. If there is a scheduled sale date, it is very hard to stop the foreclosure. So understanding they've gone through this long legal process, and at the very end, you're going to stop it like 3 days before a sale. In my state, I'm in Florida, is anything within like 10 days of the sale, it basically takes an act of a God. I've hired high-priced attorneys that can't even stop it. They say, I don't know if I can stop it. So the rule of thumb is you got to catch it 30 days before the auction, or it's a real challenge. It's expensive, it's risky, and it's no good. Honestly, if it's already set for auction, I typically just go the other way because it's just, there's too much risk. So the problem is their motivation waited till the very end, and I don't want you to get excited, get all worked up, and figure out how to do it. We're not going to pay $3,000 and $5,000 to have an attorney file an emergency motion for you to get turned down by the judge. What I want you to do is catch them at that lis pendens or before stage, because the court is very open. It doesn't cost you any extra money, and that's the sweet spot, in my opinion, to stop, slow down, or halt a foreclosure. So courts are more lenient than they think. Courts just don't like it when the defendant never responds. And so when they see 6 months of no response, and then there's a final judgment, and then they order a sale of the asset at an auction, and you come in as like the supposed hero in the last 2 weeks, it usually doesn't work out. I'm just telling, I've tried it a million times. It's very expensive and it's exhausting. And then you still have to deal with, where is the seller going to move to? They still haven't moved out of the house. I would only even consider that if you had like a legal partner or an attorney you really trust, but understands it's going to cost you money and the house was vacant. Because then you still got to get the homeowner out of the house, even if you were to stop it and you were going to buy it. So I hope this sums it up in a nutshell for you. Foreclosure is not that complicated. The keywords you want to listen for is list pendants and before. Sky's the limit. You can make almost anything work. Once you hear final judgment and auction, there's better deals out there. Just move on because that seller has waited way too late to bring you at the end. Heed the warning. So, by the way, I love marketing the foreclosures. There's more people chasing them than ever, but there's still great deals out there because people need help. And these houses traditionally cannot be sold on the MLS with regular realtors. They need investors like you and like me to help them out. Just have a heart, help people out. Just don't let them use you late in the game because there's not a lot you can do in the game. But in the beginning, your options are unlimited. So guys, tell me what your experience is with foreclosures. I've had 18 years. I've seen it head to toe. It's the same process for a $50 million property down to a $50,000 property. But let me know. What do you think? Can you think you can stop a foreclosure? You can. You can definitely stall it. You can slow it down. This is Rick with Flip with Rick, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, guys.